Okay, we are going to finish up Mosby's Fundamentals of Therapeutic Massage today. I don't know when today is for you, but I'm going to finish up the recording for lecture guidelines here. And this is a very unique chapter. You don't usually find a chapter like this in textbooks. So you want to make good use of it. All right, so here we go. Screen share. And there it is, case studies. So let me get this out of here and let me get this a little bigger so I can read it. Now, I'm not going to read each of these case studies to you, but if we look generally at the topics, case 1, generalized stress and anxiety and breathing pattern disorder. Almost everybody. The general concepts of massage application in this arena can fit to multiple people. So if you can understand how this is presented, then you can understand how you could adapt it to apply to all kinds of situations. And that's the same with muscle tension headache and generalized pain syndromes. We've used an example here of fibromyalgia and neck and shoulder and generalized low back, and the list goes on. So when you process through the stories in these 15 case or 20 case studies, you're going to be able to have a thought process to model, not only for how you apply the information in this textbook, but for future reference once you get out of class. So here are the chapter outcomes, and this truly is a culmination of all the other chapters in a practical application. You also would want to interface this information with essential science as well, because you can't separate that. Now, each of these case studies is centered around a person that represents a very typical client. And so each of these has 1, 2, or 3 complicating factors in it. So, you know, there just is no recipe for massage therapy. You might be focusing on a client with diabetes, but you're also focusing on a large client who maybe has a hairy back, who potentially has some sort of limitation, let's say, about laying on their stomach, and has a financial issue where the ideal application for massage would be frequent, weekly or so, but they don't have the financial resources to deal with it. This is the real world. So these case studies are all based on my own experience in the real world. I've often meshed 3, 4 clients together. So when I wrote this, I was coming from that kind of a, okay, here's my framework. This is familiar to me. Yep, these things all happened. And they're a good place to help people begin a thinking process. And they're pretty generalizable as well. So this chapter gives you a really good place to begin your massage therapy career. which is where we're going to be because we're at the end of the textbook. This chapter will also, as you read through each of these case studies, work your brain into a critical thinking, problem-solving mode that will help you as you take the MBLEX exam. It'll help you develop a way of thinking. So, important chapter, don't shortcut it. They're all put together like this: a story, assessment information, a thought process through that, and a treatment plan development. Now, it does not go into the actual SOAP or session by session documentation. But what would be a really good exercise for you is to take one of these case studies, follow it through, read it intently, see what the treatment plan is, and then project forward. What would the first session look like, the second session, the third session? Pretend that this is your client, and write a session by session documentation. I may even assign something like that. And that will help you practice the rest of the documentation process that goes beyond treatment plan development. So this is, each of these is based on outcome, not necessarily method, but how an individual method might show itself in a client interaction. It includes not just massage method, but also the interface with the entire person, including the massage therapist, where their limitations might be. Also gives you a little bit of insight into practice settings, because each of the case studies is presented in different types of practice settings. Sometimes there's even an overlap into the idea of a fee base and how that would be paid or determined. Okay, so this should be very familiar. The 4 main outcomes, the 4 approaches to care, how we create our interface is through mechanical force and how it affects soft tissue. And here are the ways we apply the mechanical forces. And here's how we alter, shift, modify, pick, choose. All of these come into play when we're developing a uniquely targeted massage session for a client. Ultimately, we'll end up with one or more of these stresses, mechanical stresses, that are going to cause the physiology to respond somehow, and maybe even a mechanical effect, which is then going to get processed through the central nervous system, come back out through the motor part of it with some, and the autonomic part of it with some sort of a response, which then could be the benefit, which should be reflective of the goal. All right. So follow this 7-point plan when you're thinking about this, each of these case studies. Identify the main goal and all the conditions and complicating factors. Identify the overlapping issues that alter the treatment process or the superimposed cautions for massage application. Brainstorm about what you agree with in the presented treatment plan and what you might do different. Because these are decisions. When you get to this level of practice, there are some definite wrongs, and there are some probable ways that have been shown to be beneficial. But the wrongs should be practiced in such a, or should be identified so that there's no harm. And the rest of it is fairly subjective. And so you may or may not agree with the treatment plan. Or if you take my suggestion and you project that out over like 6 sessions with 6, you pretend you've got this client for 6 sessions, what it would be like for each session. Maybe you identify that the treatment plan has to be altered, that something has occurred in this virtual client, this pretend client that you've got in your head. And so the treatment plan would have to be altered. Dissect the assessment process. If you don't remember how to do something, go back in the textbook and find both of them, Essential Science and Fundamentals, and review that. With the physical assessment information, actually put yourself in the positions described, or maybe even get somebody that you can pretend to be this client described in the case, and you can put them in those positions so that you can get a kinesthetic sense of it. Relate the physical assessment to the goals of the client and the recommendations for massage, and then explore the entire practice model for the massage therapist, including the location, the fees, and the scheduling. And if we have an assignment, which we probably will, where I will say, okay, student, you are going to present during our next Zoom meeting, case number 4, and these are the elements that I want you to focus on describing. If you learn to do this here, then you're going to have a much easier transition time in your professional practice. So here's the first case. And here is the general story here about this gentleman. He and what's going on in his world. And then here's what was pulled apart in the assessment process. And you need to stop and go, well, what does that all mean? So that's what this part is. So what are the actual facts? I mean, what's pretty concrete, all right? So the client is 37 years old. That's pretty concrete, right? But what does that mean? Well, it could mean a lot of things, but in general, a 37-year-old may not have the same adaptive capacity as a 19-year-old, with circumstances being the same. That's going to influence my treatment plan eventually on where with somebody who has a young adaptive capacity, maybe the treatment process can be speeded up a little bit. Each massage can be more intense. But if this client was older, maybe they're 67, with the same situation within the same story, that can also influence. All right, so that's the facts. They're pulled apart for you here. And then, okay, based on these facts, what am I gonna do? Or what could I do? Or what might be interesting. So, you know, maybe it's not totally apparent in the story, but my job as a massage therapist is to be able to see beyond the story and deeper into the story. So that's what this is all about. And then, all right, so they're here for a massage. What am I going to do? What are some, I'm presented with a problem. What are the possible solutions here? That would be the foundation for, this would be the foundation for my treatment plan. And then this is what's usually not outlined, but this is the analysis of each of these. So let's look at the middle one. Massage would support a moderate exercise program, which is probably one of the main interventions that's going to be used. So, because exercise is valuable, kind of regardless. So, but if exercise is new to this client, then they're likely to have some post-exercise soreness, which then can be uncomfortable and interfere with doing the exercise program regularly. So that's what is being chewed on in the logical aspects. This is time, cost, whether or not there is easy access. Now, that's what is described here. Sort that first. Because if a client can't afford, looks like it's $110 here per week, then you're going to have to rethink the whole treatment plan. Okay? And maybe finances aren't a problem, but this person is really nervous about massage. I just talking off the top of my head. Maybe, and so maybe they are hesitant to come in for a massage. So the massage can't help if they won't come in for it, which is practicality. But what's the underlying reason why? So, and you got to think about the massage therapist as well in this. Does the massage therapist feel the ability to establish rapport with this client? We can't do that with everybody. So then what we want is to come up with the actual treatment plan. We got a primary goal, stress management. We got a category of care here, which is therapeutic change. So this means that we're expecting progress. And here's what we are going to try to measure. And here's what we hope will be the experience of the client afterwards. Then this goes into explain a justification statement for why we did what we did. And then we do it again with the muscle tension headache and all of the rest of the 20 that fall through here. And there's infinite variations in here, and some of them will also be inclusive of a literature research. I think this one here is going to involve some literature research starting at PubMed, and also maybe some understanding more about what this condition is, a midline plus. And here we go again. Now, I'm not going to flip through all of these because I truly think that the layout works for itself, and we'll interact with these, not just at the end of the class, but you will find that I have brought these ideas forward, cattail, easier in the, cattail, earlier into the class to start getting you to think this way. All right, make sure you look for the complicating factor, because that's always important in being able to really uniquely target the massage to an individual. So, so here's third trimester pregnancy. Here's one. Complicating factor on this one, I think, is that it's icy and they feel unsafe to travel to the massage therapist, and whether or not the massage therapist will travel to them. All right, so let's get out to our table of contents here. So we'll take these all the way to the end and get to the summary. So proficiency exercise 16.1 is to ask you to do this and actually come up with a situation with a complicating factor, and to write a client up like this. And maybe you've had one or two people that you have practiced on throughout the course of your studies with us. And maybe you can reflect on that to use that as a model. Here's all your evolve. And this type of content lends itself to that clinical reasoning and synthesis. So you're going to see that you've got more of those types of questions than you would maybe in the medical terminology section. So then at the end of this, what I want to do is also go over the appendices here. Indications, contraindications, skin pathology, basic pharmacology, and then recognizing human trafficking victims and what to do about that. Those are the four, and then there's also a comprehensive glossary. Throughout the course of the program, you've been asked to access some of these, or you've been referred to them. So they also become a very good study source for the MBLEX exam. So that's kind of how I want to present it right now, is that you can look at this and Gary, there, okay. So Gary is wanting to really help us. So this is a good way to just review through this. And the way this is set up, the indications and contraindications are by body system. And this compares with the pathology sections in each one of the chapters in your essential science book. So away we go with that. It just keeps going. So if you do a chunk at a time, then that can just be kind of a review thing. Repetition, repetition, repetition. This is a chart that you've also seen in your essential science book, or pictures. there's likely to be some skin pathology on the NBLEX exam because it's contagious. Most all of this is contagious, not all, but most. So it's worth a review. Same with the basic pharmacology, because we need to be able to make decisions about how massage is going to interface with the medication. We have to have just a little bit of information about how medications work in the first place. So this is very helpful, and you can compare it to information that you'd find in Medline Plus. Okay, so this is organized by category of medication. So very helpful for studying for the NBLEX exam. And finally, this appendix is new to this edition. And it's referring you out to other sources that you can use to expand your knowledge on this terrible process that sometimes finds a connection with massage therapy through the connection, unfortunately, with the massage parlor / prostitution cover. But we all should be aware of this as well, so that we know what to do and what to look for. So it would be good for you to click on all of these links, and from the ebook you can click right on them. And some of them may or may not the links be broken, but most of these are government based, and they had a tendency to not do that. So, and then there's a couple of free online courses that are available as well. And then here's your glossary. Read your glossary. You know, pick 10 words a day and read down through them, and just keep going. And that, again, is a great way to review for the NBLEX exam. And away this goes. So then this last part is likely the index. Yep. And what's nice about using the electronic version here, you can click on the page number and it'll take you to it. Isn't that cool? So this then also becomes very convenient, but a great way to be able to, again, study just by going through the index. So, all right, tons of stuff here for you to use as you prepare for your career in massage therapy. So let's get back out here. So Mosby's Fundamentals of Therapeutic Massage, what a journey. What a journey. It's a good book. I like it. All right, these videos have been put together to help you study, not replace your study. And the YouTube channel has a lot of other helps. So if you have followed through our processes and as you're coming to your conclusion now to this textbook, you may want to review all these videos as also a way of preparing not just for the NBLEX exam, but for your movement from a student to a professional.